Hey, my name is Bryce and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jacko Trades. In today's video, we are going to look at a new tool that I picked up for the shop. For a while, I've been wanting to replace my Harbor Freight 4-inch vise with something a little bit bigger. I was looking for a 6-inch vise, and I started looking at the Wilton tools. Wilton's been around for a while. They started their company in 1941 in Chicago. The company's named after the cross street that their first building was located on. The vise that I ended up going with is the model 865M. This is a Mechanics Pro bench vise. It has 6-inch jaws with a 6.5-inch opening. It has a larger anvil surface than my little 4-inch vise. It weighs significantly more. This vise weighs about 31 pounds, where this vise weighs almost 60 pounds. With tools like this, the heavier they are, the better they are typically. So you want to get as heavy as you can afford. So this vise has similar capabilities in that it has parallel jaw vises. It has the ability to clamp pipes anywhere from 1/4 inch to 4-inch. It has an enclosed spindle on the backside to kind of keep dirt and debris off of your spindle. The spindle is precision machined so that as you open this vise to its full opening, the fit and finish on that spindle is going to determine how much this front face moves. The one thing that this vise doesn't have that my Harbor Freight vise does have is the ability to rotate the head. So if I loosen this nut here, I can actually rotate my head around, which is actually a nice feature to have. It does have a little bit of slop when you rotate it, but that slop gets taken out when you actually clamp the vise, because the whole assembly gets sandwiched together when you clamp this. So as I clamp this, that whole thing tightens up. But I have used that rotating feature quite a bit. So losing that feature, I'm going to have to see how that impacts the work that I do. The other nice thing that the Wilton vise has is needle roller thrust bearings on the tightening screw, which makes it easier to apply clamping force and also releasing that clamping force from the vise. The Harbor Freight vise does not have those needle roller thrust bearings on the spindle. Let's go ahead and open up the vise and see what comes in the box. I'm kind of excited to get this installed. That's the other thing I have to do, is I have to figure out where to install this. In the past, I've had this vise just kind of clamped to my granite surface plate, which is kind of a disservice to the granite, but I just clamped it in place because I don't have mounting holes on that surface plate. The reason I like the surface plate is because it's a 1,000-pound tabletop, so it's the heaviest thing I have in the shop for mounting a vise to. I think typically you want to mount a vise to something heavy so the table doesn't move when you're really wrenching on stuff on the vise. Usually the work that you do on a vise is pretty brutal, so you want it mounted to something nice and solid. I have other tabletop options, but nothing as heavy as that granite plate. So what I'm thinking about doing is actually boring some holes in the surface plate and gluing in steel inserts that I can then bolt the vise to. But I'd like to make it more modular in the sense that I have the opportunity to mount other tools, because I do have quite a few tools that I am constantly throwing up on the plate and having to clamp it down. And it'd be nice to have it more modular so that I can swap out tools and just with a couple of bolts bolt them down to some holes. And that might involve using an adapter plate that allows me to bolt that plate to the table and then have a multitude of hole patterns in the plate that I can bolt my equipment to. So I might go that route as well. And it'll also offer kind of an interface buffer between the tool and the granite surface plate, because the tools aren't always flat or have a nice bottom surface. And that'll, I think, help prevent possibly further damaging the surface plate in the future. So I'll get into that a little bit later in the video once we get this open and have a look at it. Let's go and flip the camera on and check it out. Hey, instructions. Ooh, pretty. All right. Oh, she's heavy. There she is. Let's look at her next to my Harbor Freight vise. Definitely more refined. It's interesting, this Harbor Freight opens up to 4.5 inches, but the spindle sticks out quite a bit more, even though this has a 6.5 inch opening. So let's open it up and see what it looks like. Obviously, the more you open it, the looser it gets. That's about 6.5 inches there. It's got a fair amount of slop. Let's look at the Harbor Freight guy. So the Harbor Freight actually stops and it prevents you from opening any further. This guy opens up to 5.25 inches. And it has a lot less slop. And the reason it has a lot less slop is because the spindle goes all the way through. So it has an extra long spindle. So the spindle is fully engaged with the body of the vise so that it doesn't flop around. Whereas this has a much shorter spindle. So the further out you get, the less engaged it is and the more sloppy it is. Not the best design. I would rather have a longer spindle, but then, you know, realistically I'm probably opening the vise up to here at the most ever. At this level, we're about 3.5 inches. We could go to let's compare apples to apples and go 5 inches. So there we have about the same opening. It still has more slop than the Harbor Freight vise, and again, it's just the design of the vise. When you're looking for a vise, you might want to pay attention to your spindle length to make sure that when it's fully open, the spindle is fully engaged. In this case, I think because it is an enclosed spindle, you're somewhat limited. I mean, I guess they could have extended this out in design, but it's kind of a compromise between having that space taken up on your bench versus having the slop in your jaw. The motion is smooth, opening and closing. Feels good when you tighten it up. Let's go ahead and get some of the grease off this, and then we'll wipe it down with some ballistol. Give it a little bit of protection from rust. These vices are made in China. They're not US manufactured, even though Wilton is a US company. The anvil is kind of a coarse machine. You can see it kind of come across it with a fly cutter. So it's not a polished surface. My Harbor Freight actually over the years has gotten smoother. But it's a much bigger surface, which is nice. And it has a better overhang. With the Harbor Freight, I didn't like it because the overhang kind of hit into the body of the vise pretty quickly. So if you have things that are folding over the edges, they would interfere with the body. In some sections of the anvil, you have kind of a direct drop. So you've got quite a bit of overhang potential with this anvil. So when degreasing stuff, you don't want to use any water-based solvents like Windex or Purple Power, because the water will cause the cast iron to rust. If it's kind of like Cosmoline type grease, you could use WD-40. This stuff comes off pretty. This is just kind of bearing grease that you're using on this, and so it comes off pretty easily. Just to kind of provide some protection, I have a rag here that's soaked in ballistol that sits in the jar so it doesn't dry out, and you just go and wipe down the surface. Any surfaces that you don't want to rust, you can wipe down with this stuff. This stuff is non-toxic. It has a nice smell to it, though. I like the smell. My wife hates the smell, so it's subjective. It is very aromatic, though, kind of stinky, but sweet smelling. Not much to it. I mean, it's a vise, right? It's not rocket science. There's some interesting features on it. I do like that it's bigger. I don't like how sloppy the jaw is compared to my Harbor Freight. I would expect a better design. But I think it's just the nature of the vise itself, so it's hard to fault it for that. when that is the design. It's a fundamental design, right? So if I wanted something more stable, I should have gone for something with a longer spindle. And it's just something I didn't really pay attention to until I kind of thought about it. But in general, it's a nice looking vise. They sit about the same height. So your work height is approximately the same when you swap out vices, which is kind of interesting. What's the bottom look like? Oh, interesting. So it swivels, but it has these index points also, so that's kind of cool. So you can always return to a particular position with these index marks in the base. I like that all the surfaces are, I don't know if this is paint or powder coat, but they're coated so they're not going to rust. And the only surfaces that aren't coated are the bearing, the working surfaces of the tool. All right, so now we need to get this installed on the bench so we can actually use it.
We are dreaming. All right, so here is the finished bench vise installed onto my granite surface plate. I usually have this cutting mat to protect the surface plate. I had to go ahead and notch that out for the subplate that the vise is mounted to. The other extension that I have are these soft jaw pads, non-marring soft jaw pads. So they're basically just kind of a rubber, hard rubber with magnets pressed into the back. And those basically just attach themselves to the jaw faces. Then you can hold stuff without damaging them from the vise jaws. They got features molded into them, so you can hold different types of things like round stock, just whatever. Those just pop on like that, and then obviously you want them to line up like so. You're good to go. This thing rotates pretty smoothly. Then you can lock it down. As I said earlier, it has these little notches in that ring, so it kind of indexes itself into a position. One thing that I do like is that when I tighten these down, they kind of tighten straight. I don't like it when things tighten and they're sticking out like that. So these tighten so they're parallel with the body of the vise. It's a little detail that is, I don't know if it's thought out, but maybe I just got lucky with this vise. But I like to think that they planned on that. So yeah, there it is. Can't wait to start using it. It's a nice looking vise. Thanks for tuning and watching. Take care. Bye.